What's going on, everybody? We have some crypto stuff to talk about. We have BlackRock finally breaking their inflow streak. They made it 71 days, which places them in the top 10 with this record. We're also going to talk about Hong Kong spot ETFs, and they may start trading next week. We're also going to go over an article regarding the Bitcoin miners and the halving and what's going on, and we'll take a look at Bitcoin on the chart. Everything I go over will be down below for you. The Hong Kong spot Bitcoin and Ether ETFs aim to start trading on April 30, and this was set on Wednesday by 3 asset managers that'll potentially provide these products. Hong Kong units of China Asset Management, Harvest Fund Management, and Bosera Asset Management, which is in partnership with local cryptocurrency firm Hashkey, said that they aimed to launch their products by April 30. So in a matter of days, we'll see what the effect of these spot Bitcoin ETFs coming from Hong Kong will bring to Bitcoin and Ethereum. And this isn't necessarily as big news as the US approving spot Bitcoin ETFs. This is going to bring likely much smaller amounts of money compared, but this overall should bring some buying pressure to Bitcoin. This shows more and more acceptance of Bitcoin. This shows countries are seeing what the US did and they want a piece of it. And the US isn't the only one to offer spot Bitcoin ETFs, by the way. There are other countries that offer spot Bitcoin ETFs. We have Germany, for example. We have Canada, Brazil, Australia, other smaller countries as well in Europe. We will see more join this list over time as they see the success that these spot Bitcoin ETFs bring, the money and fees that it brings. Now let's talk about BlackRock finally breaking their inflow streak. For the first time since going live on January 11, BlackRock's IBIT did not draw any investor money, finally breaking its 71-day inflow streak. Fidelity and ARK both registered small inflows, and Grayscale saw outflows of 130 million. This brought us a new cumulative outflow of 120 million, which is the highest since April 17. Look at the trend of Grayscale's GBTC. You'll see that for the most part, we are seeing outflows slowed down a bit. We had a $300 million outflow day on the 8th of April. A lot of days that were up in the 150, 160 millions. I do suspect we'll continue to see their outflows slow down a bit as their funds get smaller and smaller. They are now under 20 billion in assets under management. And by the way, BlackRock and IBIT are getting very close to 1.5 billion away from each other. Now, just because BlackRock's IBIT finally didn't record an inflow day doesn't necessarily mean we'll see outflows moving forwards, and I suspect it'll be very important to watch what we actually see today for BlackRock's IBIT. Do we see inflows? Do we see outflows? That's something that the market will be watching for Bitcoin. And yes, they did break their streak, but they still made it in the top 10 of spot Bitcoin ETFs of all time when looking at daily inflow records. Now, looking at Bitcoin on the hourly, it looks like it's already playing this out, but we're seeing an RSI divergence. Bitcoin's price is seeing lower lows, but the RSI is seeing higher lows. It looks like the market's already starting to react. It might have seen that as well. Going over to the daily chart, we are finding resistance on the 50 MA. And according to the Heikin-Ashi candles, our momentum for now is heading down. It does look like the market in fact did react to this ascending support, and we did break it, and we saw a reaction to it. Short term, we might continue to see Bitcoin cool off a bit. If we see IBIT record outflows today, I think we'll continue our sell-off. If we see inflows, that might breathe a sigh of relief. But you know, in my opinion, for the most part, Bitcoin's probably just going to chop around for a little while before it picks a new direction. We might head down to our previous support and test it, the 61,000 area. If we break that, we might see lower levels. But I personally expect a little bit of sideways chop before we start choosing a new direction. The reality is we only need a 15% move to the upside to see new all-time highs. Bitcoin could definitely do that in a matter of a few days. Is it likely to do that? I don't know. We're probably going to get some sideways action. I do think it's also going to really depend on what we see for BlackRock and GBTC. And speaking of GBTC and BlackRock, I want to show you that GBTC assets under management is now only 19.3 billion. BlackRock is at 17.6 billion. They're now roughly 1.7 billion away from flipping. In a matter of days, we'll be under 1.5 billion. In a matter of weeks, we will be seeing them flip. I also want to talk about this Bitcoin miner article. And it says, despite the reduction in rewards, the total network hash rate has remained stable since the halving event. This suggests that Bitcoin mining is still profitable at Bitcoin's current prices. And the total network hash rate held flat at 617 exahash per second post-halving. And on the day of the halving, Bitcoin miners received pretty nice transaction fees. They reached record levels relative to the total revenue generated by miners. Transaction fees represented 75% of total miner revenue on the day of the halving, which amounted to roughly 80 million on that day. Since then, transaction fees have dropped to about 35% of total miner revenue. As time goes on, we will see these transaction fees take a larger portion of the Bitcoin miners' revenue, and this is an indication of that. We have more and more being built on Bitcoin. I do suspect we'll see transaction fees continue to rise over time. And I'll leave this article for you down below. It's kind of interesting, but they say that fees have dropped to roughly 20 million per day, which is still a 170% increase from average daily fees in the week prior to the halving. And as of this writing, transaction fees make up 40% of miner revenue, almost canceling the effects of the halving. And looking at transaction fees peaking when the halving happened, this was actually double the average fee at the previous Bitcoin cycle peak in April 2021. And even though these fees did drop down to $34 per transaction on Sunday, they're still at their highest point in 4 months. In my opinion, it'll be really important to see what BlackRock's IBIT posts today. Do they see outflows? Do they see inflows? I think the market will be watching for that. And I know I didn't really mention the Bitcoin miners today, but in my opinion, now is still the time to buy. Now is still the time to be bullish on the Bitcoin miners. I do expect May is going to be a huge upcoming catalyst for them. Many are expecting profitable quarters. If we see some posting good earnings, it could rise the tide for all the boats. And I do personally expect the miners to overall rally by the end of May. Of course, if Bitcoin tanks, that might throw a wrench in those gears, but otherwise I do expect the miners to see some nice recovery and potentially test new 52-week highs. It won't always be the time to buy the miners, but I do think now is one of the times. Thanks as always, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.